The International Newsnet World Report is a national television news show available in more than 30 million homes. We broadcast daily real news the networks won't tell you. We are solely viewer-supported. That means you. You can donate at our website, INNWorldReport.net. We hope you find the following interview informative and helpful.
Back in September of 2006, Vice President Dick Cheney's counsel ordered in writing the Secret Service to destroy the official visitors' logs containing the names of those who visited him at the official residence of the Vice President at the U.S. Naval Observatory in Northwest Washington, D.C. A federal judge ordered the records to be released pursuant to a Freedom of Information Act order, but the Bush-friendly U.S. Court of Appeals later blocked the records. The Vice President is claiming executive privilege to be able to destroy those records. Who would know more about the Vice President and his comings and goings than Wayne Madsen, WayneMadsenReport.com. Welcome to INN, Wayne.
Good to be with you.
Wayne, this story smells of crimes being committed left and right, destruction of evidence, ongoing investigations, and even the death of an assistant U.S. District Attorney in Baltimore. Where can we begin?
Well, it's tough to begin, but let's begin with that assistant U.S. attorney and his boss, Tom DiBaggio, who was the U.S. attorney for Maryland. And back in December 2003, the assistant U.S. attorney, Jonathan Luna, who, it should be stated, got his start at the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office in New York, was investigating corruption in the Baltimore Police Department, centering around the police commissioner. Tom DiBaggio, his boss, the U.S. attorney, expanded that probe. Eventually, Ed Norris, the former New York Police Department officer who became the Baltimore Police Commissioner, was indicted for fraud and using police money to pay for prostitutes. Now, these prostitutes included those who worked for Pamela Martin and Associates. These were the women who worked for the so-called Washington, D.C. Madam, Deborah Jean Palfrey. Luna turns up dead in Pennsylvania, stabbed 36 times in the back and off the Pennsylvania Turnpike in December '03, and they said he dragged himself to a creek from his car. The Justice Department, the Federal Justice Department, claimed that it was a possible suicide. No one in Pennsylvania believes that. They treated it as a homicide. Eventually, DiBaggio started to, after he indicted Ed Norris, the police commissioner, who, I might add, after Republican Governor Bob Ehrlich was elected, he was made the Maryland State Police Superintendent. So DiBaggio gets an indictment against Norris after he's the head of the Maryland State Police. The probe is expanded. Norris sings like a canary in return for a lighter sentence. DiBaggio is probing Ehrlich and members of his staff in Annapolis for involvement with Jack Abramoff's gambling interests. They were trying to get gambling into Maryland, especially at racetracks, one-armed bandits and whatnot. And also the prostitutes were mentioned. We do know that one of Pamela Martin's escorts, I should say, a Dr. Brandy Britton, who was a professor at the University of Maryland Baltimore campus, was later found hanging in her home. Now, they said it was suicide because she had been outed, arrested for prostitution. People aren't quite so certain that it was that also was a suicide. That we may have two murders here. An assistant U.S. attorney and one of the escorts who may have known an awful lot about Ehrlich and other people in the state of Maryland. So let's fast forward this up forward. We have now ABC spiking the story about the D.C. Madam, her phone list, which were never confiscated by the federal government when they seized her assets in September of last year. I might add, that was only 2 weeks after Vice President Cheney his letter to the Secret Service to destroy all visitors to the Vice President's mansion.
Well, let's go back to Vice President Dick Cheney. You believe that he destroyed his visitors' logs because they were going to reveal some connection to the D.C. Madam?
Well, from what I understand from people I've spoken to here, now understand there's a court order by a federal judge not that the madam and her attorney cannot release any more information about those phone records. She's deliberating that. Now, I think it's funny that last week, just prior to the judge's order expiring, at 6 minutes to midnight, the government came in to file its motion to keep the gag order in place. And they didn't file any affidavits that would say, well, why would this cause harm to release the information? It's a very weak case on the part of the government. They're obviously very panicked what may be in these records for good reason, because I've been told by